Hello, New Life series. Thank you for joining us. We're here with our educational series with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman. Hello. Hello, Nitsa Mazuz. Hello. And today we're talking about communication, and we've reached the internet, the central issue that made the greatest revolution in the last dozen years and influences each of our lives individually and as a society. Today we want to focus on social networks. Before we get into the discussion, I want to make it clear the discussion that we're having with you and all the preparations and all the papers on the table, they're actually created on a social network. We have a team of people all over the world, dozens of people from Croatia, Japan, Europe, Israel, tons of people, and all of us together build this thing. We want to deal with communication, we say. So it's not that me and Nitsa sit together and think what's the best thing. We ask the world what's interesting. People say what's interesting, and then we see what we want to know from that. And today, together, we develop it online with lots and lots of people. So this discussion today and all these papers are actually an expression of lots of curiosity and desires and inclinations from people all over the world, which actually happen on a social network. So as the social network has turned our lives into something else, completely breakthrough, innovative, much more smarter. We want to go over all these processes today, see their potential, and see how they take us forward toward the new life. Social networks. Nitsa, opening remarks. It's a whole world in itself. First of all, I want to say that a social network is not something that was born on the internet. It's something that's existed for many years. It got accelerated when we went into the internet. But a social network is something that actually influences the individual, the way he thinks, the way he makes decisions, his whole perspective, his perception of reality. The human mind, apparently, we understand that it's adjusted to work in a network. We'll be very happy to hear about that. The social networks, it's a term that's based on the theory that the world is small, and actually, between two people, there's only 6 degrees of separation, of connections. The minute this subject went into the internet, it even minimized the gap because everyone can connect with other people through friends. We get to know new people. Each of us are all of a sudden connected. So we understand where there's an opening point that you go into the network, but the ending point is limitless. You can connect with anyone there. It's infinite. There's a lot of life on the network. It's a place that has its own life. If we just look at one detail, it will be hard to understand what's really happening there. It's like looking at a fish or a bird. They look independent, but they live as part of a large group that influences itself, and they just adjust themselves to the wave, to the flow of the network. And we do the same as humans. So this whole aspect of researching social networks, this whole new science that's come as a result of this process, is looking at groups, how it influences, how it works, how the individual is influenced. So it's fascinating, and it's a whole world in itself. First question. It looks like we're built in a way that is matching networks. Why are we built in this way? Humans. We spoke many times that a person who develops according to the laws of nature. And nature develops us in quantity and quality by overcoming our ego, our desire to receive, our desire to enjoy. Just like primitive bodies, we reached blocks, organisms that are made up of different cells varied, in contrast with each other, and in harmony with each other, connected with each other, to the extent that we advance in our development. I'm talking about us, I mean nature, all of nature. So all the parts, the cells, the bodies are becoming more and more complex, and complex meaning that they already exist themselves and are made up of opposing parts. And opposing parts, there has to be a connection between them, a mutual connection to hold the whole body in life, to maintain life. So the whole thing is about the connection between opposing parts, first of all. There has to be some difference between the parts and some connection between the parts. And this synergy, harmony between the gap and the connection tells us about the essence of life and the power of life in that same body, to the extent that in a person, say, and not even in a biological way that we exist. There's what to talk about there as well. But in our heart, in our mind, to the extent that there's great gaps between opinions and thoughts and desires, to the extent that it's more complex, to the extent that his opinions are from opposite ends and desires opposite ends, and not that it's just flat, then he's a person, a greater person, a more developed person. Development exists and is drawn toward complexity, greater complexity, to greater oppositeness, and in accordance with that, a greater connection, so that everything will remain in balance. And this is how we develop at all the different levels, still, flora, animal kingdom. To the extent that the body is more developed and complex, it includes many opposing parts and many connected parts, that this opposite that are in balance. If we're talking about the internalness of a person, which is a degree after still vegetative, animate, then we're talking about the talking part, the human part. We see that we develop actually in the same format as previously in our ego, and that our ego is developing all kinds of different desires, taking us to all kinds of directions, and we need to balance it out. Otherwise, we won't have life. Our ego is, on the one hand, causing us jealousy, greed, honor, hatred, rejection. It wants to remain on its own, but if it remains on its own, it won't have anything to live from. It has to begin to connect with everyone, and to connect with everyone, it has to pay for the connection. It has to give someone something to be in connection. That same egoistic development brings us to a connection with everyone, even though I don't want it. I just want to be on a one-sided connection to receive from everyone, but I see that if I receive, I won't receive anything. I have to also give. And then we have this network. We also see, like in the medieval times, right up to the 17th or 18th centuries, there were social networks that were very weak, and it was only in the most developed part of society, in the elite. They had salons, some kind of society. They had a special mail system, diplomatic relations, culture. The rest of the masses, 99%, was completely... They lived like animals. And for the last 200 or 300 years, the aspect of society, development, right down to the most simplest people, has become has become accelerated for the connection, toward the connection. First of all, it has to do with industry, because around factories and organizations and banks, that's where they needed tons of people. And then they brought the villagers, and they started to organize them, make them into big blocks of workers, managers, and etc., etc. There began to be a connection between people, but it was around industry, around commerce, various services, and then newspapers and printing, publishing. People started to learn to read and write because they needed a profession. And out of that, organizations, there were unions and professionals. If it's industrial, we need engineers to connect around the world. And the network started working. Of course, it was through publishing, print mainly. But they were connected between them, especially according to profession. And this is how they worked. Of course, culture and education did a lot here. We need to understand that all these things develop only through some inner need of the person. People that exist at a certain level of development and in a professional manner, in a specific profession. First of all, they're interested in what has to do with their interests, their profession, their status, apart from general things, which are education, culture, family life, those things. These are wider networks. To the extent that our world is, and the interconnection between people that is coming from our ego, that's become more and more connected until it became integral. Let's say at the beginning of the 20th century, it began to feel a need for a connection. Radio was developed and then TV, but it's all one-sided until the people got a desire to be connected one with the other in a more intensive manner and in a two-sided manner, and not necessarily in their professions and all kinds of narrow things, very specific things, but rather as humans. There was a deficiency for connecting, communicating. Our desire developed to such a point where it discovered that we're connected between us in all kinds of manner of communication, from the simplest life, what do you like to have for breakfast, and right up to how do you sleep, and how do you drink, and how do you have fun, and how's your life, and how you relate to all kinds of things, everything. Everything that's happening inside a person, all the good stuff, the bad stuff. I have an urge to get it out of myself, to spill it to the world, and then I see what's happening. Why? Because I feel that we're connected to each other in my subconscious. I begin to feel that all the good things and all the bad things were connected together, that I can apparently open up myself completely like an operation and take everything out of me. And I'm sure that you and him and her, they all have it inside. And actually, only in an imaginary way can each of us, we imagine that each person is closed inside themselves, but we're open. as if I'm the opposite. I begin to feel some kind of inner urge to open up myself to the entire world. I have no idea why. I just feel that it's happening. I want it. I feel that I want everyone to know me, not just naked on the inside. That I will, in all my things, I'll connect to everyone, all my thoughts and all my desires, from my heart, from my mind, everything. Everything that I have to everyone. Why? Because I feel some urge, some need for it, which I don't understand. But it exists. And we see that on the way to the development of such urges, of course, we come out with all kinds of not pretty forms, and we overdo it with our openness, and we act a bit too much, but that's in the meantime. You know, like little kids make a pee-pee in their pants. It's as if we don't know how to use it. But this urge is an urge that's coming to us from the revelation of the network connecting us, which is revealing to us the total connection. And of course, terror and all kinds of international connections, and this migration from place to place, where people are traveling and flying and are going crazy. It's all still a system that wants to stabilize itself in a total manner and has no idea how to reach balance. But in the transition from state to state, it's still in an unbalanced state. That might take a few more dozen years, it's possible, this whole process, the transition from state to state, until it calms down and becomes stabilized. But it's happening, and I'm already beginning to feel that since the first shock and jumping all over it, and we're starting to see something that is coming like any process. First there's jumps, and then it stabilizes. It works itself out. The same thing here. Again, networks are a natural result of the natural development that exists in us. We are not allowed to limit them. We need to educate. That we must do. That's the correct approach. Education and not limitation. We need to understand and research what's happening to understand the general nature, negative, positive, toward the integral development, toward that balanced state that we'll have in the future where we all complement one another in a good manner, as one body, as one organism. And that's what we need to educate them toward. To the extent that we bring them education, not in depression and not by controlling them, in that we are advancing development, and that is how we'll maintain all of the population, that they will suffer less until they grow up in a qualitative manner, in the correct connection. I think this process you're talking about, we should do by looking at the phenomena that exist today and try to understand them. So, Nitsa, I want to emphasize here, I am not on the social networks I don't have any account there. Maybe someone's doing stuff in my name, maybe from our organization, or maybe not. I heard there's all kinds of Dr. Laitman, Professor Laitman, and all kinds of things. Whoever writes it. I personally, apart from my blog, which is published, and all these shows that we're filming here through the lesson, I do not exist there on the social networks. So, Nitsa, please talk about the phenomena. First, let's describe, you gave an explanation here about this inner urge to open myself. And that's something that we truly see in such an unlogical way, the way it's happening in this arena of social networks. It's as if it's simple. People are giving their details, their status, what they do, their education, who their friends are. It's you can't even grasp it logically. Who wants to expose themselves like that? Why? We've reached the opposite state where I feel an urge for exposure. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's surprising what you said. What is this urge for exposure? We see it happening, but it doesn't make sense. By opening myself, I'm apparently discovering my senses to absorb the world. I feel that if I'm closed, I'm like in a grave. That first of all, if I open myself, it's an expression to what extent I'm willing to accept the whole world, how much I need to feel that I'm alive. Otherwise, I don't feel life. This is how it happens naturally. This is how a person feels. Today, for example, something that's happening, people get up in the morning, they open the social network. The leading one is Facebook, but there's many, Twitter. Facebook is the greatest. They have a billion pages. It's incredible, tons of profiles, and they checked only about 8% of them are fake. The rest are real. People really build a profile and they live in the network. They get up in the morning and they write how they feel in the morning or where they were last night or what they did and if they went out and what they ate. There's like a very intimate interaction happening here in an open network, and it doesn't make sense logically. What can happen? Why do I have a need? What do I get out of the individual small person? What do I have to hide? What is there? Is there something special about me that I am like such a deviation from everyone? It comes from nature. I am not ashamed. I don't judge myself. I simply open myself like a creature. That's how I am. A person already stops to identify himself with what we call the person in him, the creature. It's as if he's looking at himself from the side a bit, and he's writing about himself, like writing about himself in third person. He doesn't feel shame. He doesn't feel that he needs criticism, but rather accept me as I am. There's all kinds of phenomena in nature. I'm also a phenomena. Our ego is pushing us to open ourselves in exaggerated ways. Apparently, I'm special in this, even in a negative way. This approach that we have to be modest, pretend to be polite and pose, it's a long time ago, it transitioned to a negative side, and now it's starting to balance itself out to a natural place. This is me. There's really an interesting phenomenon that you can see, that a person makes an effort to he creates a profile to, of course, present himself in the most ideal way, and he also wants to convey that everything's okay with him, usually. Look how much fun I'm having. Look where I ate, and look how much fun I'm having, and how happy I am, and how satisfied I am. There's a desire for a person to show his positive sides. Still, you're saying it's going to change soon? It's going to balance out soon? Of course. To a place of truthfulness? It's not hypocritical. It won't be hypocritical at all. So what does he expect? By acting that he's happier, does it help him? It helps him to be happier. If I pretend to be a happy person, then I'm happy. That's how our life is. It's always better that they'll present themselves as successful and happy people. It will help them live to accept life in an easier manner. But I think that, again, it's the transition phase, and where we'll reach, we'll have to place in front of us in society some goals toward which we're drawn, and where we have a challenge, goals, nice goals, adventures, something that will grab our attention that we can play with. Because playing, acting, is what the social network is looking for, what we can play with. What kind of adventures? I don't get it. An adventure that I understand that I need to be on my life to maintain myself, my family, my kids, to work. But a person can't live without some goal, without some destination. Vision. Something in the clouds, something pink, that's somewhere out there it will happen. Because our lives are not, they're not giving it to us in our arena. And in the network, it's possible. So I think that actually, whoever knows how to convey to the network such destinations that will attract people, that will connect them to it, they'll be very successful. People are seeking, we're all seeking games, the game of life, let's put it like that. To play the virtual life, the nice virtual life that will fill me, that will give me oxygen, that I'll be in these fantasies just like my regular life. And my regular life is just nothing, I just do it. But I'm living from something that I have every moment access to it, that I get excited about it. So what we're seeing now, and all these networks that I hear about, to the extent that I feel, I'm not there. It's, in the meantime, development of a machine that doesn't really have spirit inside. Whoever will know how to put the correct psychology into it, to attract people to something, like kids who are attracted to some adventure in their lives. That will be taking advantage of the network properly. What kind of spirit would you want to put into the social networks? I am not at that level. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not at that level. I'm not saying you, I'm saying the vision. What would what would be called putting spirit into the network? What does it mean to put life into the network? I would put, let's create between us a connection between us where we will begin to feel life outside of our bodies, let's say. We can come out to a life outside our bodies. There's lots of things like that on the internet, mystical things talking about it. So I don't know if I'm special in that. And there's probably all kinds of techniques and activities and organizations, but I would do that. What? I don't understand. To organize a network, like a club, as wide as possible, as large as possible, lots of people. And through the connection between them, they want to achieve, they want to reach a system outside their bodies, that they want to reach a connection, something that has nothing to do with their bodies, that connects people, that it doesn't connect them in a virtual way or through their bodies, but I call it a spiritual form, where we truly meet there with all the creatures that lived at any time and were revealed, that we meet there with the inner energy of all the creatures. We need to find words that won't confuse us with all kinds of other methods. But that's what I would be happy to see. The network that is acting in this direction, that is developing such a connection between people, that's leading them, explaining to them the correct way to connect between them, and in what manner we rise above ourselves to the extent that we use our body for it and rise above our bodies. How much we have to connect with one another to strengthen each other mutually and support one another and help one another, and we truly feel how we're more and more in the connection between us. The effort has to be in the connection, toward the connection, and not that I am squashing my body and jumping over it to something. The goal is to connect properly between us outside the body. And in this virtual connection, we begin to feel the new life. At first, it looks to us as if it's virtual, but the spirit that will come from this virtual connection, and this connection is already giving me some type of disconnection, psychological disconnection from my corporal life here, and this life in the network, in the connection between us. Not in a virtual network, not in this electric thing where we're connected in Facebook, but the feeling that we acquire through these media channels. This feeling is like a network that is separate from bodies, from a virtual network and the new network between us, which allows us to feel ourselves existing at the upper degree, where we feel that this network is above time and place, is disconnected from everything happening in the the network where we're connected with our bodies and the virtual network. It's a different dimension. It's the level of man, human. We understand that the connection has to be in harmony to the extent that I give and take, how much I strengthen others and they strengthen me, how much it obligates us to feel as one, etc., etc. That is actually the development. If I had the ability to create such a thing, then of course I would do so. That is my dream for a long time. But even though I talk about it here and there, with whoever hears, I don't see that they have the ability. They go into the network and they drown there. The network grabs them, swallows them, and they're stuck in the regular habits on the network. And they're doing all little things to promote something in that same network, and they're not creating a foundation that will raise all my students, all our fans, which are hundreds of thousands of people around the world, that will raise us to another level. It will come, but in the meantime, maybe I don't have who to work with in the meantime. I don't understand it, technically how to do it, but that's the idea. I've been speaking about it for a few years. It's not the first time. The process that you describe now, if I try to give it a title, you're talking about the virtual network to put life into it, soul into it. Into it? Okay, let's say into it. To begin to teach people about the form of connection where they will be able to rise from the simple virtual approach, which actually doesn't achieve anything. Let's put it like this. If I sat close to you and we would talk, or in the network, it's the same thing. The network today is just a shortcut for distances. That's it. And on the other hand, it allows us to be more open with each other. On the one hand, I feel that what I'm doing, everyone will read, and on the other hand, I feel that I'm protected from them, hidden, protected, I'm blocked off. Sorry, I meant protected. So it allows me, but the subjects are the usual simple subjects that in our bodily, most common denominator human things. But I'm talking about a connection, a purposeful connection, where the goal is to bring us to feeling life beyond time, beyond distance, beyond place, to create a sort of platform that will rise up from Earth and take us to a different dimension.
What
do you mean it will rise up from Earth? We will build some bubble that will be like a tool that flies between the galaxies. We're building a vessel like that. This vessel is the network of connections between us, and this connection is very special. It's mutual. Everyone is rising above their egos and is connected with others as one body. And then inside this system where we're connected, we're finding life, special life. life at another level, outside of our bodies, each and every one of us, but common. And this collaboration has its own life, because we're going into there, to the connection between us. That's where we live, and not our bodies. Our body is just to maintain me in a manner that I live and exist to be outside of it, outside this connection. Let's say a person who is a scientist. His entire life he's inside his science. He doesn't live, he doesn't sleep. Everything is inside the science. He eats a little bit here and there, he sleeps a few hours. But he's completely immersed in his work. If we, along with our lives and our work and everything, we could rise above the connection between us, and there we would feel that this is the main life, like scientists, like artists, like people who are dedicated to some concept, ideology. We would begin to feel that this connection between us, a new type of life, a new level of life. That is actually the correct use that we will have, that will be revealed through all these virtual social networks. They will have to develop. That's their evolution. But it will take a few more years. I would try to develop it now, but unfortunately, I'm not in it. I can only talk about and explain what I want in simple words, but to convey it to technical terms and organize it, and I need professionals and people who can really, people who really want to carry it out. A small organization can do it, but of course it would attract all of humanity eventually, because that is actually, what is the internet? What is all this Facebook stuff? At the end of the day, it's the development of the revelation of the connection between us, which brings us to connections that are more and more superior. It's not cables and modems and everything and Facebook, but to connect in a more simple way, in a more direct way, without any adjustment between us, that I have to send it to you, you have to receive it, but to create a network that there's no wires or waves between us. There's a network that exists between us, and it's becoming revealed as a network that connects us all together as humanity, because all of nature is the network. But we have to discover it. So it turns out that through efforts at our level, we're discovering this network, this loftier network that exists. And then when we reveal this network through our efforts, it's called advancing toward it by the light, by our efforts in the good. But if not, evolution will push us very hard through suffering to be in this network. Let's say the spiritual network. I call it spiritual. What are we missing right now to get into this network in a good way? Give me people that understand the network, that can carry out what I ask them to, instructions in a psychological way, how to build it, that they'll know how to translate it to the technical terms, and around them, dozens of other people that will start participating in it properly. It's a technical matter. It's technical to understand me and carry it out in a technical manner. There's nothing else. And then we raise ourselves to the next level of existence, which is called the spiritual life, Without any other level, we leave it. And this transition is called Achishena, with our own might in our current state. Part of the image that you're explaining now is already happening today. You described a picture where people have their lives, whatever they have to do to live, and they have another life that they have in the network. That's already happening, and it's getting stronger. The younger people are, this is how they relate to what they have to do in their everyday stuff, and compared to their life in the network, their attention is more focused on the network. They're connected, they're online, they're always updating their status and sharing. And it's like this life, the true life, are like becoming a shadow of the network. So that's already happening. That's already happening without us. This psychological feeling is already completely in place. If you disconnect a person from the internet for a while, if there's some problem, I think people will go crazy. So there's already this migration of my mind, of my attention, what's the main thing in life and what's not so important. Already there's this transition. So you mean the tools are already there, correctly, and that's exactly my question. The readiness there is, that life is in the network. What do you want to add to there to advance it? What do you want to add to this network evolution? You're talking about network evolution, right? Yes, network evolution, of course. To organize a group of people. That's all groups there, more or less. A group of people as wide as possible that will put in front of them goals, very precise goals, clear goals, and they'll discover a plan through which they'll reach the same goal. And this plan has to be as detailed and clear as possible for anyone who goes into it. We're not hiding or covering anything. That's what we want to achieve. And to begin to carry out between us this type of life inside the network in order to raise ourselves step by step, situation after situation, toward the goal that we determine. And to publicize it as much as possible, that whoever wants to can join. And around this you'll have tons of questions and entries and people taking an interest. And that's it. That's what I think. We have lots of things that exist already. But they don't exist like some part of the network, apparently. They exist like a closed-off club. They're not open in a way that attracts as many people from the network as possible to connect to it. I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to express it. We do not know enough how to publicize that our goal is a very beautiful, special goal that is attractive, that is actually the future for everyone, that allows us to be truly to live in a network that is not dependent, that you can connect it or disconnect it. You know, they turned off our phones. You raise yourself to, it's as if you exist now in connection with other people, even without the internet, just like you were in contact with people. This is in commerce, industry, culture, education. All of humanity is here in this area and is connected. Now, a system is coming, newspapers, televisions, and all kinds of connections. And then suddenly the internet. All this connects between us at the level of this world, here, on Earth. I'm talking about us taking this network, and inside this network, we need to create a little group of people. Let's say this is the network that you take this network and begin to raise it up higher. And it's all, it's like material. You're pulling it up to the level of this spiritual level, to another level. Here, where we're together, in this area is a natural area, the living level, the person who is living, because everything happens through his body. He receives everything through his body. I want that through this little club that I'm creating in the network, my special group, to raise it to the next level, to the level, speaking level, to the next area, to the next dimension. And there it will also exist in a natural manner. Just the internet will allow me to take it from this level to that level, from the animate level to the speaking level, to the human level. If I do it myself, it's called achishena. If I'll be forced to do it with problems pushing me and suffering, then it's called according to time, according to the urges, the pushes, which will pressure me and will work on me very hard. It will be very difficult for me. You said in the process here that you want in this general network of the internet to specify a specific inner network that will have a special goal. Can you tell me what the goal is? The goal is to rise in the quality of the connection. The bodily, earthly, in this life, to a level of connection where we're disconnecting from the body and we're living only outside the body in the connection between us. What does this mean? That each of us, in order to reach this future connection, he has to be connected with others in an open manner, in an open and good manner, that I'm actually a modem myself. And I begin to connect with everyone. How can I be connected to you? Tell me. You're just a human. If I come to you in a good way, then in this case, you'll be able to be open to a connection with me. I have to come out of my ego to rise above it and be in good contact with everyone. That's called my modem, my computer, being open to connect with everyone. And this is how everyone is acting. They're open to connections with others. Open mean they're treating everyone in a nice way, at least not harming, and even to influence them well. There's various degrees of the connection, of course. Don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you, and love another as thyself. This actually explains the forms of connections, like in the network, how many bits you need to connect to each person. How many kilobytes every second you're passing from one to the other, it depends on your openness towards others. What is the extent of my openness? How much you raise yourself above your ego? How much you can connect to the desires of your fellow man? You're getting into connection with them, just like the modem. You go in the same frequency, the same protocol. You know, there's protocols, special conditions for the condition, one device to another. So say, I have a desire in front of me, not him, her, that's nothing. I'm talking about a desire. From my desire, I rise above my egoistic desire. I'm prepared to connect to my fellow man, to influence him. Good. I'm conveying something to him. There's a good connection. And then, if in my desire I'm willing to connect with her desire in a good way to fill it, then she will open herself and I will connect. And the same thing, it'll happen, everyone with everyone. So first of all, the condition for connecting in the new network is that we want to bring good to one another, according to what the other person defines as good, to the person I'm connecting with. Otherwise, his device will be closed to my connection. Why? Because how can I get into him with if the protocol doesn't exist, if his conditions that he's keeping to himself, that he's protecting himself from bad, he's closed off. If he sees that I'm coming to him and precisely according to, he wants a glass of water, and I bring him a glass of water, and not some juice or something else, then he's open. And this is how we connect. In a technical manner, we're doing the same thing, just at a lower level, at the material level. This is how we connect. Otherwise, how would there be a connection between two computers? And there's providers, we'll still talk about that. Between the providers, there's those that help us connect to one another, people that we have to build into our system. The new system, there'll be educators, the people who arrange everything, that teach us how to connect with one another, and this is how we'll build the connection. This is actually a level that we will have to build. Humanity can't escape it because it's the natural trend of our development. You said before that you see that the internet network can bring us to feel the general network in nature. Yes, gradually we're developing. The internet network, where did it come from? It came from our inner frustrations that we need to have more connection between us. All of nature develops from the little spark up to atoms, molecules, all over Earth, more and more and more in more complexity with one another, until we reach now not to a more complex life in our bodies, but a more complex life in the human connection, and then later spiritual. The word spiritual is not clear. It's not clear. I understand you. Because if you were Flora, you wouldn't understand what living is, the next degree. Now you're at the living level, you don't understand what it means to be human at the level above it. The level above it means to be in connection with everyone, where you're not actually chatting, but rather speaking directly from the heart. You have a connection with everyone, and a connection between everyone to everyone without anything blocking it. That's called real talking, and not the talking that we have where we don't understand. Yeah, I'm talking to you with my mouth and you hear it with your ear. That's just a temporary form of connection. So a sentence for conclusion. How do you see the development of the social network? The social network, first of all, I don't think it's correct to call it social. There's no social, there's no real connection. It's just still a game. I hope that it will develop to be truly social, to correct good connection, which this current network will only be as a springboard to a connection without any other tools. Thank you, Nitsa. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Until next time, all the best, and let's be in touch.